First of all, I would like to welcome everybody in Kiev and thank you for supporting Ukraine and Dragon Capital with your interest, investment and business. As always, we'll try to provide you with a detailed overview of the latest economic and political developments, company and sector updates, and last but not the least, since last year we have a new topic, unfortunately, the security situation. The timing of the conference could not be better. When we were deciding in December when to set this conference, we were orientating ourselves at the expected first progress of the new government and new parliament that come to power last autumn, and also on the expected timing of a new agreement with the IMF. And last week, Thursday, was probably one of the information heaviest days in Ukraine, with news coming in parallel from Minsk and from Madame Lagarde in regard to the new extended fund facility. So you are here at the right time to get the latest news and set your strategy. Today we will start with the keynote speech by Dmitry Shimkiv, who is the deputy head of the presidential administration in charge of economic, social and administrative reforms. We'll follow with two panels. I'll moderate the first one with Oksana Siroid, the deputy chairman of the parliament, and with Ivan Miklos, the former minister of finance and vice prime minister of Slovakia, and since January of this year, also the key advisor to the ministers of finance and economy of Ukraine. He has been traveling to Ukraine quite frequently over the past year, so has a good insight on where Ukraine is and where it has to go in order to implement the reforms and the association agreement. Following our panel, we'll have a coffee break, and then Neil Buckley from the Financial Times will moderate the discussion with 5 new ministers, neither of whom were in politics until 2.5 months ago, and 2 of them had to change their citizenship to be able to join the new government. So this will be also quite interesting. I don't think there is probably any other country in the world where something similar has happened in recent history. Tomorrow in the morning we'll start with a keynote speech by the governor of the National Bank, Valeria Gontareva, which will be followed by a panel with her participation and also with the top representatives of IMF, the World Bank, the EU delegation, and Mr. Miklos. And since Ukraine is a top 3 world exporter of almost any soft commodity that is grown in our climate zone, we'll conclude tomorrow with an agricultural panel. And in the afternoon today and tomorrow, many of you will have the opportunity to also meet companies in group or one-on-one meetings. Now let me share with you the 3 key factors that I see influencing the investment climate over the last year and also over the coming year. It is the Russian occupation of Crimea and the east of the country, it's the ongoing reform process, and it's the substantial international support that Ukraine is receiving and will continue to receive. While it is very difficult to predict what will happen with the first factor, even seasoned politicians like Mrs. Merkel have a hard time to estimate how the situation will develop. We are cautiously optimistic about the result of the recent Minsk meeting and agreement, but most importantly, where I would like to focus your attention, it's where Ukraine can help itself to solve the security situation, and that is primarily the increased defense capability that has been built up over the last 12 months by Ukraine. The army has been substantially strengthened and will continue to do so. This is thanks to the actions of the Ukrainian leadership, the increased financing, the international support in terms of goods as well as training for our troops, and most of all, it's also the support by almost every Ukrainian citizen. There is hardly any person here in Ukraine who has not participated in one way or another in supporting its own army through deliveries of equipment, food, clothing, helping to treat the wounded, etc. This realization by the population as a result of the revolution of dignity a year ago, that it has to take the matters into its own hands, that it's kind of DIY, do it yourself, is quite important. And this is also what makes me quite optimistic about the second factor, that's the reform process. We have on the one hand substantially renewed leadership of the country. You will hear from the new ministers. Mr. Shimkiv will discuss what has changed in the presidential administration, how it has been renewed and restructured. Oksana Siroit will talk about the new parliament that was elected in October of last year. This is very important. And on the other hand, you have the civic society, which has substantially increased its demands on politicians, and it has also, to a large extent, taken the matters into its own hands and supports the political process and pushes it forward, and it's becoming very visible how this is having a positive effect, and it's quite a different situation than what we had in 2005, when after the revolution the population relaxed and let the politicians do their job. This is not the case anymore. The follow-up is very close and on a daily basis. And finally, I'm also very optimistic about the international support that Ukraine has been able to generate and that it will continue to receive. You have the extended fund facility from the IMF together with a larger package from international donors, and Jérôme Vacher just arrived on this note. And you have the association agreement and the DCFTA with the European Union, and these two programs with many others will act as a positive as well as negative motivation, as a carrot and stick to move the country in the right direction and along the path that has been traveled by our Western neighbors towards prosperity within the European Union.